All right, welcome everybody. Today we have James Hewitt with us. He is a licensed marriage and family therapist to talk to us about ways to reduce stress during the holiday season. We may have had a preview to that last week, and so this will be good to help us prepare. I'm going to put in the chat box a sign-in link so that you can earn your 10 points. And I will be putting that in the chat box throughout the presentation for those of us who join us after because they can't access the chat box of what we've previously said before they've entered. But James, I will hand over the time to you to help us de-stress.
Okay. Well, thanks for having me again, guys. Really looking forward to talking to you about how we can manage our stress during the holiday season, which there seems to be plenty of that going around. I love the holidays, love Thanksgiving, love Christmas. I'm also a big July 4th person. I love just the time you get to spend with family. But I also recognize that these can be times of stress as well for a lot of people. I do want to spend probably not nearly as much time as I did last time. So those of you who were present at my last presentation a couple of weeks ago, I think it would be good to just kind of review a few of those kind of key ideas about what stress is and the impact that it can have on us. And then obviously I want to spend the majority of my time talking specifically about how we can maybe avoid undue stress during the holidays. So let's start off with, I shared this before that the only person that doesn't experience stress is a dead person. So we all experience it, right? It's not, we just don't want to have it in our lives all the time. In fact, as we're going to talk about, there's some really good things that come with, stress can be really good for us. So what is stress? Stress happens when pressure is greater than the resource. In other words, when things around us are sort of piled up, or the things that we're being asked to manage seem to be greater than our capacity to manage those. And that's when we feel that stress within us, in our mind, in our body, and it can knock us out of balance. And remember, I gave that little assignment to you guys to kind of do that pillars of a balanced life, right? To kind of find out where maybe your lives are a little bit out of balance. We're not going to talk a lot about that today, but I still think that really applies to the holidays as well. We want to make sure we're kind of keeping things in a good balanced place. Otherwise, we're going to be stressed. Stress is our body's response to any physical or emotional changes in life. When our body and mind, like I said, are knocked out of balance or homeostasis, it forces us to pay attention. Usually when we feel this stress within us, it releases a chemical called adrenaline, or a hormone. Also, another chemical that's released is cortisol. And basically those chemicals are released to help get us the energy and the drive to manage that thing. So like I said, our bodies are set up to manage stress pretty well. The problem is that if we can't turn off the stress response, then we're headed for some problems. So for instance, the fight or flight response, right? I mean, that can really be helpful to us if we're confronted with a life endangering event or something that's very frightening that we need to really pay attention to and take care of. It's obviously not very helpful if we're always in this kind of fight or flight response at work, for instance. We're not going to go over all these really, with much time, but I do wanted to just kind of throw this out there like I did before is, everybody experiences stress differently. Some people, I hear a lot of people say that they feel it in their shoulders and their neck, in their back. They'll get headaches. Sometimes they have a really hard time sleeping because they're having racing thoughts. It really can affect your ability to concentrate because stress kind of, by its nature, wants you to kind of hone in on whatever that issue is that's stressful. And so if we're if we're having to concentrate on lots of different things, stress is going to make it very difficult for us to do that, right? We're going to have poor concentration. We can get very irritable. Obviously, over time, like I said, it can really affect our immune system. That's a big one. If we can't learn how to turn off the stress response, then we're not only headed for disease, which is probably the biggest thing, but we're also making it us more likely to catch infectious illnesses. Obviously, that's very important in today's climate with COVID and such, is that we want to keep our immune systems as powerful as possible. So that's pretty much kind of what I wanted to say on that slide. So why are the holidays so stressful? We hear it a lot, right? Well, there's a few of them. And we're definitely going to focus on the positives of the holidays, but I think it's important that we talk about some of the stressful things that can come up during the holidays. For instance, let's start with, there's COVID-19. I'm going to spend a little time on that. Holidays can be very expensive. We start, buying gifts for other people and for our families and for our kids, and all of a sudden, it gets pretty stressful with the amount of money we're spending. We tend to be very busy during the holidays. It's a time for everybody to kind of get out and be doing stuff. And that in and of itself can kind of knock us out of balance. And we kind of feel like we're just being rushed around doing stuff. And that can be stressful. Too much togetherness. Is there such a thing? Yeah, I'd say there is. Or sometimes not enough togetherness. We're going to talk a little bit about that with COVID. Overindulgence in eating and drinking, and the regrets that come along with it. Isn't it always kind of funny when you, right after the holidays, if, now obviously the gyms are kind of set up to where they're only allowing so many people in them. But, prior to that, prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, isn't it always funny to see the droves of cars at the exercise centers, right? I mean, people are just out because they probably gained that 5 or 10 pounds over the holidays of just all the overeating and drinking. And, I'm not going to say that's bad necessarily, but I'm just going to say that, again, that can create a level of stress, right? Like, oh my gosh, I've gained all this weight, now I've got to go. And then and we're trying to avoid having stress in our lives. So probably being able to kind of have some level of moderation so that we're not kind of going to stress ourselves out down the road is probably good. And this last one, we're going to spend some time talking about this, is this expectation that we have to have everything be perfect. So let's talk about COVID-19 for a second. I think I'd be remiss if I didn't. How will COVID-19 affect your holiday plans? You notice I carefully crafted that sentence right there, because it's not will it is how will it. Everybody is impacted on some level with the pandemic, right? So it is going to affect your holiday plans. The question is how are you going to adjust? How are you going to deal with these changes in a way that doesn't create this high level of stress and anxiety and even depression with some of the changes that we're having to deal with? I think number one, kind of comes, I guess, to the therapist in me of cognitive behavioral therapy, is kind of our feelings sort of are driven from the way we think about things, and then that obviously drives the way we act or behave on a level, right? So I think if we can kind of mentally put ourselves in this place of, things are going to be different, and that's okay. It may not be our preference. It may not be the way we would like them to be. But I think just being able to kind of put ourselves mentally in that place of, rather than resistance, is just acceptance that things are going to be different this year. I'm hopeful that, this isn't going to be something that, lasts for years or anything like that. But it is something we're having to deal with right now for sure. Things are going to be different. I also put this in here because I think it's important, as being respectful and understanding of other people's boundaries. I don't know if it's the same for you guys, but I would imagine it is, that in the many people that I talk to, about kind of their feelings about the pandemic, whether maybe some of it is politicized, right, from the left and the right. And, you people tend to either be on this side of, oh, it's nothing, it's just the flu bug, just like nothing else. And then on the other side of, oh my gosh, this is, uh, devastating. And I think it doesn't really matter what side you're on, in my estimation. In a lot of ways, it's how are you going to respect other people's opinions and their thoughts about COVID-19? Some people, again, are pretty relaxed, right? Maybe they think that masks are ridiculous. Maybe they think social distancing is ridiculous. Whatever the case may be, I believe that we need to be respectful and understanding of other people's boundaries. If they are not willing to come to the family party because they're too worried about catching COVID, then that's okay. And that should be respected in my book. And that should be understood without any judgment. I think that's where I think there's a problem sometimes with people wanting people to think or believe the way they believe, and then that kind of creates all this struggle. And even within individual families, within a larger family, you're going to get differences of opinion. Again, just respecting other people's boundaries and being understanding of what they feel comfortable with, I think is huge. If you're going to gather for Christmas dinner or Christmas get-togethers, what can we do as a family to create the safest climate possible? I believe this is going to take, for everyone to do this, it takes a level of communication, right? Whoever's the planner of the party or whoever is hosting the party, I think making sure that, emails are sent, conversations are had, maybe even when people get to the party, a reminder of those expectations of some of these things, like, hey, creating seating arrangements. That might be seeming a little weird, but you can kind of encourage social distancing that way. Arranging your meals in advance, like having one person be designed as the runner or the server, then kind of having this big buffet style where it's probably more likely that things could get spread, right? Wear masks when not eating. The problem with get-togethers is unless you have a very large kind of open area for people to meet, the tendency is that you end up putting a lot of people in a very small area. And obviously that's going to create a higher risk of infection. So wearing masks when not eating, I think having open areas as much as possible. I like this one too. Leave disinfecting wipes or spray in your bathroom so guests can clean their hands and wipe down handles, faucets, or doorknobs before they walk out. Simple things like opening up the bathroom windows if possible too. That's why there's so much encouragement to get outdoors, right? I feel like that's something that's changed, where it seemed like people were just kind of asked to just kind of hunker down in their homes. And to a certain extent, yeah, quarantine. I mean, there's probably times when we need to quarantine ourselves, but what they found is that people need to get out and get fresh air, right? They need to get the sun. They need to get out. So if you're going to get together with people, probably having bigger areas where there's ventilation would be ideal. I already just kind of talked about that. Have areas of good ventilation. When I was doing a little research for this presentation, I thought this was interesting. Avoiding activities that require singing, shouting, or game night where you share cards or pieces. Okay. Now remember, this is for like bigger get-togethers. I mean, obviously within your own family, this is probably not as big a deal. But yeah, I mean, what singing and Christmas seem to go hand in hand. So, probably, again, the social distancing, open areas would be important. I mean, I get the whole idea behind this, though, is people are opening their mouths, when they're singing. There's probably, you see those little, slow motion things when people sneeze, or probably when they're singing, and there's more things coming out of their mouth. And so just to be more safe, kind of avoiding activities like that. Game night tends to be people kind of all huddled around each other, and plus you're kind of, if it's a card game or you're moving pieces, you're touching the same thing. So obviously that would increase some level of risk. I would be remiss working at a hospital to not say that the best way to prevent the spread of communicable diseases is regular hand washing. I'm sure everybody that's within the sound of my voice has also heard that over and over again as part of their employee training. So I think that it's always worth remembering that we need to do that as often as possible. Use technology to reach out to others if you can't be together. It may not be the same as being with them in person, but it can still be very rewarding and connective. So I would encourage people to use those options if you're unable, or certain family members, or just even as a family, you're unable to kind of get together. I think this gets so undersaid in these days of COVID is do what you can to boost your immune system. I think there's so much less, there's just not enough press about that. What can you do to boost your immune system so that you are less likely to contract the virus? There's a lot of good things to do that. I'm not an herbalist or I don't know. I know a few things, but there's so much good material out there about what you can do to kind of boost your immune system. Some of the simple ones that are related to COVID, I think, is being able to, take a regular vitamin C or vitamin D. They found that, sun is such a huge booster of our immune system. So getting out and getting sunlight is huge. And even if you don't get a chance to do that much, then maybe even taking some kind of vitamin D supplement would be helpful. What about, even zinc? Another proven vitamin that can help us with boosting our immune system. And there's probably so many more. You guys, probably a lot of you that are listening to this know more about that kind of stuff than I do. So I really don't think that can be understated. And I think I'd be remiss to say that we need to do our best to follow state guidelines and mandates. So what are some of the holiday stress by the numbers? So here's a survey that was done. What is it that creates stress? Lack of money. That's a big one, 61%. It's because we end up probably going to buy things we wouldn't normally buy, right? And then we kind of find ourselves maybe a little on the short end financially. There's a lot of pressure of gift giving, especially, gosh, I don't know if you've ever felt this, but sometimes you might have a family member that buys you something, or that they're going to get you something. And so you feel this pressure to get them something back, maybe of equal value. So it makes sense that a lot of people stress over the pressure of gift giving. Maybe the lack of time, because we see that this is a time of togetherness and spending time with family. But the reality is that those of us that are working, that our workloads don't change, and maybe they even get busier depending on what you do. So sometimes this ability to spend time, or the amount of time we would like with our families, that can be stressful. Credit card debt, again, similar to what I was saying before. The effect on physical health can be stressful, right? All the eating, the sugars, the food, all those kind of things. And so then it kind of breaks it down here, the eating part, and then overconsumption of alcohol. I thought this was interesting. I felt like I should throw this in there. So holiday decorating can be hazardous to your health. I like this picture up here of, I believe it's Harry and, oh, darn it, I forgot the other guy's name, but from Home Alone. Obviously, Christmas was very hazardous to their health. But they had 17,465 emergency room visits over the holiday months. And most of these were using ladders, was the most common risk factor. 62% of these people were between the ages of 20 and 49. So these aren't the, your 80-year-old grandma getting up there trying to put up lights or stuff. These are people, able-bodied people in their 20s to 40s. So what does that say? Well, be careful. I like this. It says males sustain more injuries than females, 58 to 42%. I guess you could look at that as, it's usually the guy's job, right, to get up there and put up the lights or climb the ladder to do this or that. But it's pretty impressive that 42% are females as well. I mean, that's not as big of a difference as you might think it would be. So there's a message there. Just be very careful, be mindful. Just because you're younger doesn't mean you can't hurt yourself. And it says some of these actually ended up being not just like quick ED visits, but they ended up being on medical floors. All right, so this next step I wanted to take here is a little bit is the cycle of holiday stress. Where do you have control? So we're going to break it down into kind of 3 areas here: people, stuff, and expectations. Okay, so as you're looking at that, where do you think you have control? Well, you don't really have a lot of control over people. You might have some influence over people, depending on, you can kind of move people or sway people a certain way or to do certain things. But generally speaking, we don't have control over people. They're going to act and do what they're going to do. Stuff, yes, we have quite a bit of control over what we decide is the amount of stuff that we're going to buy, gifts, where are we going to go? What are we going to eat? What are we going to do? Those kind of things. And then we have control over what expectations that we create for ourselves during the holiday season. So we're going to talk a little bit about these kind of 3 areas. So people, dealing with difficult family members. I don't know how many within the sound of my voice have this problem. I know that as a therapist and, working in private practice, it is not uncommon for, people to have difficulty getting along with their parents, with certain family members. There's just, there's history there. There's things that have happened that really create a level of discord or disconnection or irritability with being around each other. I like this quote by George Burns: "Happiness is having a large, loving, caring, close-knit family in another city." Has anybody felt that way? Gosh, I have one of my best friends, and I don't say this lightly, but he has a very unhealthy. His in-laws are very unhealthy people, and I think about the things that he has to kind of deal with, really on kind of a day-to-day basis, with being so close to them in proximity, nonetheless having them just come over all the time. So that I don't want to minimize that there's definitely those rifts that happen in families. So what do you do if you're going to show up at a family party or be around others that you aren't usually around all the time? Then what are you going to be able to do to get to manage that? Well, I think planning ahead, identifying people that you really have the most difficulty with, making a plan of how you would like to behave when you're around them. And also maybe making sure that you're not alone with those frustrations, that if you have a struggle with somebody, is making sure that whoever you're going to that activity with, make sure that they understand that, so that they can kind of maybe be a little bit of a buffer there, or at least to kind of connect with you, so you're not just kind of locked into a power struggle. I think this is important, especially when you're getting in big get-togethers. Avoid hot button topics, right? I mean, a lot of times conflicts center around very differences of opinion on certain things. Well, we have the ability to avoid those kind of big button topics. And furthermore, we have the ability to just sort of be able to take a step back and realize that just because this person has a different opinion than us doesn't mean they're wrong, doesn't mean they're bad. It just means they're different, right? And so we sometimes sort of take some of this stuff personally. And honestly, sometimes we have a right to, we feel rightfully, I guess we feel just in the way we feel, because sometimes it's not a person just sharing their opinion, it's they're almost putting down your opinion. And I think just having that confidence of saying, hey, I understand how you feel, but I just feel differently. Again, just kind of comes down to this cognitive behavioral stuff, right? I remember working with a teenager once that in his own mind, when I was explaining this idea of our thoughts drive our feelings, he said, so kind of what you're saying, James, is I shouldn't give the keys to my car to somebody else. And I'm like, exactly. Why would you want to give the keys to your car to somebody else and let them drive off and do with it what they want? It's your car. You drive it. You decide how you're going to act, what you're going to say. And so I think psychologists kind of call this intention. Like, how are you what's your intention as you come to this party? And if your intention is, I'm going to avoid hot topics, I'm going to avoid conflict, you're gonna do fine. Don't drink too much alcohol. The reason I put that in there is because alcohol. Obviously, one reason that people like alcohol is because it kind of numb your senses. It can kind of relax you, right? And that might be a pretty good coping skill when you're in a very stressful situation with family. However, it also can kind of have it also can create a problem as well, right? Because the fact that it kind of numbs your senses and kind of dulls your maybe what you would normally have as a filter, that might start to go away, and then yourself getting into a more stressful situation, right? Let go of the need of perfection. Enjoy the day as is. We kind of talked a little bit about that. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. And we'll talk a little bit more about this practice gratitude. Find one reason you're grateful for each family member, no matter how annoying you find them to be. Why would that be important? Well, obviously, it changes your mindset, right? You're going into that party with a different intention, a different way of being. And that is, I'm going to go there trying to see the best of this person. And rather than going there with, oh my gosh, what's the next thing they're going to do to just tick me off, right? So I like this kind of going in with this different mindset. All right, so let's go to the stuff. They say that about 93% of Americans exchange gifts during the holidays. That seems to match up, right? What makes gift giving so stressful? What is the reason for holiday gifts? How do we promote more meaning in gift giving? Those are all good questions I would just kind of ask you guys all to sort of ponder for a moment. What makes gift giving stressful? Well, there's probably a few different answers. If I was with you in person, I'd like to get feedback from you guys. I would say one thing that makes gift giving stressful for me, which is probably pretty common for others, is that when you care about somebody and you have strong feelings for your loved ones, you want to give them something that's meaningful, right? And it just seems like when you go out and try to find things to buy and do, it just doesn't seem like it seems to measure up with how much you care about that person. It just reminds me of, I remember there was this, some of you guys might remember this, but when I thought it was funny that Angelina Jolie bought Brad Pitt an island for his, I think it was for his 50th birthday, maybe. And it was this heart-shaped island. And I thought, wow, wouldn't that be nice? We could just buy an island for our partner. Maybe that would sort of meet the the level of feeling that you have for that person, is to buy them an island. But obviously, we can't buy islands, right? Most of us, anyway. So I think that kind of builds some stress. Is that we want it to meet the level of the appreciation. But what is the reason for holiday gifts? It's just that. It's just to show appreciation. It's not, I have to kind of remind myself a gift is just a gift. It doesn't have to encapsulate all the feelings that I have for this person, or, you know, even with children, we don't have to buy them this just crazy gift to show them how much we love them. It's just the fact that we're thinking of them and then we're buying them something that they can appreciate. That's all it is. And I think this gets a little bit undersold, is how do we promote more meaning in gift giving? You know, as a marriage and family therapist, one quality that is really important in healthy relationships is they have what they call a detailed love map. What the heck does that mean? Well, it just basically means is that I know what makes my partner tick. I know what they like. I know what they don't like. I know what is meaningful to them. I know who their best friend is. I know what kind of jewelry they like to wear. I know what kind of perfume they like. Those kind of things. Those are detailed love maps. Do we have detailed love maps for our loved ones? Do we know some of those small things that would mean a lot to them? And that we could create a gift or buy a gift that kind of accentuates what we know about them as far as our love map with them. I think that I would ask you guys to ponder that a little bit with your children, with your significant other, or spouse. What is it that I could do or say or buy or even make that would show that this level of appreciation that I have over maybe just a small attribute of this person, so that when they get it, they go, wow, you really thought about me. I think that means a lot more than what money can buy. All right, so what are the expectations? Obviously, there's a lot of expectations that are placed around the holidays, right? We get this society's holiday messages represent this cultural push and pull towards this idealized togetherness. And if for some reason the way our family's made up, maybe our parents divorced, maybe we're disconnected with a certain family member or two, whatever the case may be, then we have this expectation that doesn't really fit the mold of reality of our own situation. And so that can create a level of loneliness, disconnection, those kind of things. So expectations from self and others to look our best, wear our best, serve our best, and be at our best. Wow. If those aren't high expectations of ourselves, then what are, right? What expectations do you struggle with? What is it that you're expected to do that you don't really enjoy doing? Or that you get a level of frustration about? Where do those expectations come from? Are those things that have just been passed down from one generation to another? There's a little kind of funny story about that always kind of stuck with me when I was in grad school, and it's very simple. It's just basically this family, they cooked a turkey for Thanksgiving every year, and the wife, what she would do is the mom, what she would do is she would cut this turkey in half, and then she would cook one half of the turkey at the beginning of the day, and then she would cook the second half the next part of the day. And this went on for years. And finally, one of her grown sons said, Mom, why do you cut the turkey in half and cook it separately? Well, why don't you just cook it all at once? And the mom kind of looked at her son and said, you know, I don't know why I do that. I think that's just the way I was taught by your grandmother. Oh, So when grandmother came over to the house, the mom said, "Hey, mom, why do we cut the turkey in half and cook it?" And the mom said, "Well, when I was younger, the ovens weren't big enough to put the whole turkey in, so you had to cut it in half so it would fit, and then you had to do it, and then cook the other half." Can you imagine the look on that mom's face? Are you kidding me? I've been doing this for years, and I could have just cooked the whole turkey because my oven's plenty big enough to fit the whole turkey in. That's a pretty, I love that as an example of how we sometimes just get pulled into these expectations of how things should be or are, when we have the ability to change the way we do things. We can choose what expectations we're going to put on ourselves. Just a couple of pictures that kind of demonstrate this. This is a Norman Rockwell painting. If you look at this, it is kind of funny. So just noticing a couple of things. First of all, you've got the kids sitting there. Wow, I mean, they are bathed. I mean, she's got, the little girl's got this beautiful dress on and the bow, and she's all made up. And look at, Johnny over here has got his suspenders on, his hair is all combed, he's even got Sunday shoes on his feet, right? And then you got mom over here, she's all dressed to the nines, she's got her lipstick on. And then dad's over here, he's reading the paper, they're sitting in front of this nice warm fire with this just, idealistic situation, right? Is that reality? I don't, maybe it is for some people in this room, but for me, this is not the reality. I mean, my kids are getting me up at the crack of dawn, 5:30. Come on, mom, dad, get out of bed. Santa's here. We want to open the gifts, right? And we're throwing on our jammies, and we're coming down there, and we're definitely not looked all primped and proper. I can tell you that. And if you've got a bunch of young kids, it's more like chaos, right? I didn't even notice this just until now, but he's opened one gift and he's playing on this telephone. He's got all these other gifts underneath the tree. Does that happen? No, people, they open the gift, and even if they like it, they're like, "Oh, this is wonderful. Thank you so much." And then they set it aside ready for the next one, right? So we sometimes have these ideas in our head that are just not really set in reality. How about this one? Wow, what an idealistic look at what Christmas should look like. All these big packages and this beautiful Christmas tree, and it's snowing outside. We got a warm fire and candles going on. I mean, again, there's nothing wrong with these, but as long as we can kind of keep them in in the place of reality. I know that everybody's house looks like this for their decorations. And if they're not, then you need to really step it up. Again, there's nothing wrong with people doing this. In fact, I can really appreciate it. I think it's pretty cool. But I also know that I'm not going to look at that house and go, "I'm such a loser. Why does my house not look like that?" I'm just not going to do that. It's just not worth it. I like this little picture. Here's the expectation, right? And here's the reality of a Christmas tree. Oh man, if we had to get our Christmas tree to live up to some level of, whatever expectation, then we wouldn't be very happy with the tree that we have. So I think, again, taking a step back and saying, "Hey, that's really cool, but I'm really happy with the tree that I have." The thing that is really hard and really amazing is giving up on being perfect and beginning the work of becoming yourself, which is kind of an imperfect being, right? We're all imperfect. Let's focus a little more on some of the positive things that the holidays can bring us. The holidays really provide an opportunity for us to reconnect with loved ones. I think that's probably one of the things that's creating a lot of stress for us this holiday season, is because those family members that maybe we don't have an opportunity to see that often or to be around, we're being kind of encouraged not to kind of have those big family parties, right? Those big get-togethers because of the worry that we're going to spread, the COVID-19. So I think that's creating a lot of stress. But again, I think we need to be flexible during this, especially this year. We need to kind of maybe adjust our expectations a bit. It doesn't mean that we cannot reconnect. It just means that we're going to have to reconnect with others a little different way. Going back to what I said before, doing FaceTime and those kind of things, making sure that if you need to create a list of the people that you're going to make a conscientious effort to reach out to, that you would normally have an opportunity to do so, even if it's just once or twice a year. But maybe this year you're not going to be able to do that. Does that mean you can't reconnect with those people? No, just means it's going to be a little more difficult. So yeah, I would really encourage you guys to kind of maybe make a list of those people that you really feel like you need to connect with, and reach out to them. I think it'll provide, it'll be very rewarding for you and for them. I think the focus on gratitude for what we do have versus what we do not have. There is so much research out there, and I talked a little bit about this last time, that demonstrates the power of regular gratitude exercises, like making a conscientious effort to express gratitude every day. And some of us do that through some kind of meditation, prayer, or even a more identified exercise such as journaling, or just making an effort to say that you're grateful for somebody every day. Doing that, it just hijacks your emotional system, and it sets your brain to kind of look for more positives. And what a perfect time of the year to do that, to take a little bit to reflect on the things we do have versus what the things we do not have. I think this is a great time of the year to incorporate some traditions in your family. I love working with young couples that may be having some struggles, and one thing that I really talk a lot about is the young couple is kind of separating themselves in a healthy way from their families of origin, is to create traditions and within their family. So even if they are going to their in-laws or to their parents' house for a Christmas get together, or even for a Christmas activity, I really encourage them to come up with a couple of things that they start doing together as their own family. I think this is a perfect time to start incorporating some of those things, whether it's some religious traditions, some spiritual traditions, maybe even cultural traditions. I just think doing that, it gives something for children, it gives something for the family to really look forward to, because a lot of times these activities or these traditions that we can create within our families, it not only creates more connection between us, but it's something for us to look forward to in the coming years to kind of maintain that tradition. Again, even me and my family have had to sort of adjust a bit to some of these things, because one of the traditions that we've done as a family is my wife and I, with our 3 kids, we hook up with her brother and her sister-in-law and their children. They have 4 children, and they're in relatively the same age as my kids. And we'll all kind of go to the spaghetti factory downtown. And then afterwards, we would kind of go over, take the train, take tracks down to downtown, and basically walk around, see the lights, and get some hot chocolate and those kind of things. Obviously, this year is kind of putting a damper on that, right? I don't even know if they would let us have that many people sit together at the spaghetti factory, for one. And then number 2, obviously, with all the construction going on downtown around Temple Square, It's making it very difficult for us to kind of do this yearly tradition. But we can create some new traditions, and it doesn't. And I think we're going to still try to figure out the spaghetti factory thing still. So yeah, you just kind of have to adjust. So just a few more. I got about 15 minutes or so. Just a few more kind of tips to managing holiday stress. Um, Number one is just take care of yourself. Make sure that we sometimes feel like taking care of ourselves is selfish. But how does the saying go? You can't lift other people onto higher ground unless you're on higher ground yourself. You have to take care of yourself first. Um, I guess there are some times when that may not be the case, but most of the time, I mean, even when you're on an airplane, for heaven's sakes, what do they say? Before you do anything, make sure you put your own mask on, right? Before you start helping other people put their mask on. It's the same thing. You got to take care of yourself. So number one, reach out. For some, the holidays can be very depressing due to feelings of loss, sadness, and loneliness. Do you know people within your circle that may feel that way because of a loss of a spouse or loss of a child or um, worse, I guess, loss of somebody from COVID or something like that. Do you know somebody like that? I would imagine that the holidays would be even more difficult for that person because, again, we associate the holidays with togetherness, right? So, really encourage you to reach out to other people um, that may be feeling some of those feelings of loss, sadness, and loneliness. Um, I think this is understated. Plan ahead and stick to holiday plans. Um, I had a really smart person tell me once that the people that procrastinate feel the same level of stress that a person that does not procrastinate feels. The only difference is that if you were to put it on a graph and you took the stress of a person that does not procrastinate, what would happen is to say, let's just use this for holidays. If you started at the beginning of December, there would be this slow and steady incline of stress that is just enough to kind of get that person to make sure that they're preparing, they're making plans, maybe they're going to get the gift that they want to get. There's just enough stress there that's pushing them to make sure that they get kind of their ducks in a row, right? And then by the time they get to Christmas, their stress level is still not very high. It's had this little steady incline, but in the end, it's still pretty low, right? It's very manageable. It's not putting us in this crazy stressful response, right? So if you took that same level, that same amount of stress, and you put it all on the last maybe 3 or 4 days of Christmas, the 22nd or the 21st or the 25th, and then you see people that have procrastinated and put it off, they did not plan ahead, then that level of stress would, if you added that all up, it'd be the same amount for the other person that didn't procrastinate. It's just all bottled up into one spot. And obviously, that's a lot harder to manage when it's all in one spot, and now you got very little time to be able to plan or get the things done that you need to get done. So I would encourage people to sort of think now, what do I need to do? What am I wanting to plan? What am I wanting to, what gifts am I wanting to buy? Get those done now so that you're not so stressed when it comes down to the end of the holiday. I like this one too. It's okay to say no. Especially if we kind of go back to some of these expectations. If the expectation is that you do A, B, C, and D every year, and it's just overwhelming and it doesn't make the holidays very fun for you, then it's okay to say no. Yeah, I just can't do that this year. I'm sorry. I had this one, you're going to laugh at this, but I had this one woman that I was seeing for therapy, and she was talking to me about how she's been really having a disconnected relationship from her daughter, and her daughter's really mad at her and is just really kind of putting the full court press on her, of just how bad a mom she's been and all these things. Well, one of the things that precipitated this is that this mom, and I don't have a lot of time, so this mom kind of had this. She had a really horrible upbringing, and so I think she kind of grew up with this idea as a mom as I'm going to be everything that my parents were not to me. And so on all of her kids, she just gave them everything, her and her husband for that matter, but mainly her. She was there for them. They would buy them everything. And so one of the traditions that they had set up is that they would have, I think at least this one daughter would come over to the house. She would spend the night. They would have this wonderful, Christmas Eve dinner, and then they would have all these wonderful gifts for the kids, the next day, and then another great dinner and all this. And, now that all the kids are grown up, including this daughter who's married now, she said, it was too stressful. I just didn't want to do that this year. And so I told my daughter that we weren't going to kind of have the traditional, normal thing where we're going to have everybody, sleep over and we're going to do this and that. We're just not going to do that. We're just going to have kind of a get together for a family dinner, and that's about it. Oh my goodness. I mean, this daughter, she just lost it. I mean, she was like, this was the exact quote, "How could you ruin Christmas for me?" Wow. Right? Talk about being rigid and sort of being locked into an expectation of what Christmas should look like. It doesn't get worse than that. And so with this poor mom just saying, no, we're not, I just can't do that. Setting boundaries, it really created kind of a big, a lot of stress, but it was the right thing to do. She needs to take care of herself first. And if, I think it's probably a situation of learning for her daughter that, hey, maybe it's time for her to start some of her own traditions, and what an opportunity to do that rather than just being angry and embittered. Share the workload. Don't be afraid to ask for help. A lot of times, especially if we're in some identified roles of, it's maybe some traditional roles of where the wife is in the kitchen cleaning, cooking all the food and all that. No, that's not the way it is. It shouldn't be that way. Share the workload, get your kids involved, get your husband or your wife involved. Just get everybody. It should be kind of everybody working together in my book. Practice moderation in food and drink. Don't abandon your healthy habits over the holidays. I think if we abandon our healthy habits, again, we know we're kind of going against some of our own core values I'd say core values of what is important to us. And when we abandon those for even a month or two, that's going to create stress. It just will. And then this idea of letting go of the need for perfection, enjoy the day as is. Let's see. I think I had one more slide, but I can't seem to get there. Here we go. So I won't spend too much time on this because I'm almost out of time. I just got 5 minutes. Consider your holiday plans, create, modify, change traditions as needed. We already talked about that. Setting limits. I think, especially when it comes to buying gifts, kind of what is your budget? Kind of stick to that budget. There's something about having a plan, sticking to it, that is going to keep the stress at a level that it needs to be. Obviously, with all the things we're having to deal with and the changes, our ability to kind of stay away from major stress is going to be that we just should expect that there's going to be changes. We need to roll with those. We can't plan for all the things that could happen. We don't need to participate in all the activities. If we have to say no to one, or we just can't, it seems like it's too much, It's okay to say no. You have my permission. um, I like this. Choose connecting activities. Are there Christmas lights you can go to? Participating in a cookie exchange, giving service gift certificates. That's a good one to friends or family members. Watch movie classics. Like gosh, there's so many good ones, right? Um, yeah, just think about that. There's just so many good Christmas movies like Scrooge or Christmas Carol, I should say. It's a Wonderful Life. I mean, some of those are just kids will enjoy them. Kids and adults would enjoy them alike. And planning on doing the cooking and the wrapping with other people, so you're not just doing it by yourself. Um, Ask for help. We talked about that. Volunteer. It's a good way to lift your spirits with others. Make time for yourself. I like this one. Listen to holiday music. I guess for some that would just drive people crazy, and that's okay. Then don't do it. Give a gift to someone who's not expecting it. I like that. Um, and then lastly, in summary, start your plan now. Don't be that person that puts all their stress at the end, because then again, it's just not going to be good for us, right? Mentally or physically. Just kind of like start our plan, start working on it now. We still have plenty of time to get things in order. Recognize what is within your control and be prepared to roll with it with the things that are not in your control. Set limits and boundaries. Be okay to say no, and then focus on what is important to you. A lot of times, this is an opportunity, right, as families, to focus on the importance of giving, um, being grateful for the things we have. It's an opportunity for a lot of people to kind of rekindle their spirituality, or to focus on um, their their spiritual beliefs. And I think that's huge too. Is kind of what is really the true meaning of Christmas. I think really making sure that that's kind of instilled in our families, and making sure that we're focused on that as well, I think can really decrease the level of stress. Well, that's my presentation, guys. I really appreciate it. I hope there's a few things that I talked about that can really help you moving forward. Thanks again, and have a wonderful holiday season.
Thank you so much, James. And we know that the holidays can be a hard time for those that are struggling with grief. And so if you are, please reach out to the Employee Assistance Program. I will put it in the chat box so that you can get more information. It is on our Healthy Lifestyles website to get more information about their counseling sessions, as well as the articles that they provide about parenting and aging and balancing all the things in our lives. But thank you so much, James.
You're so welcome. Take care, guys.
Have a
Bye bye.
happy holiday, everybody.
Sounds great.